I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. I have no idea what I'm doing with my career. I don't really know what trajectory I'm on, and I don't really know what it is that I'm trying to achieve. But I don't actually mean that in a negative way. I actually mean that in a really, really positive way. This is something that there's been a lot of talk about on social media recently. There's been a lot of talk about people's careers and how they've kind of taken unexpected turns and how people are working in careers that they never planned or expected to be in. So I kind of wanted to talk about this today in relation to my life specifically, and how even now I still feel like I have no idea what I'm doing, or no idea how I really wound up here in the first place. I remember when I was really, really young, one of the first jobs that I ever thought that I wanted to do was to be a zookeeper. I was absolutely obsessed with animals, and I couldn't imagine anything better than getting to work with them. And I guess little Calum had this notion that he would grow up and be a zookeeper and he'd get to play with all the animals, and that's the way that his life would turn out. A few years later, I fell in love with literature. I absolutely loved reading, and my parents were amazing. They always took me to bookshops and let me choose all the books that I wanted, and I really fell in love with reading, and I decided that I wanted to be a writer. And I remember writing what is probably the worst book that has ever been written at the age of 8 years old. I think it was like horror themed, and I'm sure my parents have it somewhere, but I honestly don't want to see it because it's probably the most mortifying thing that I will ever read. And I kind of stuck with this idea of wanting to be a writer until I was about 13 or 14 years old. I was obsessed with it. I was constantly writing little stories. I remember at one point I was actually selling these little stories I'd written to my classmates for like 50p a story. I was obsessed with it, and I was convinced that that was the career that I wanted to pursue. And that's when I fell in love with music. And music went on to kind of shape my teenage years, which is really interesting because this happened by a complete coincidence. Like many things in life, this could have so easily not happened, and all it was that I stumbled upon this tiny little electronic keyboard at a car boot sale, and it was like £1. So I bought it and I brought it into school with me, and I remember the music teacher taking a real interest in the fact that I had this little keyboard, and he really decided to try and push me into music. And that's how I started playing the piano. I still play the piano to this day. I picked up the saxophone, the drums. I ended up being in a band. I ended up being in a little orchestra. I was in a gospel choir. So just from finding this one little keyboard at this car boot sale, I ended up doing so many things to do with music. And so when it came to doing my A-levels, which is like high school for any Americans watching, I decided that I wanted to do music, and I decided that I wanted to go to university to study music, and I wanted to study jazz in particular. I also picked up a load of other subjects as well, like English, media, and art, but music was my passion. I was absolutely in love with it, and I was convinced that I wanted to be a musician and I wanted to spend the rest of my life playing music. But obviously that isn't what happened. I actually failed music at A-level. I worked and I worked and I worked at it, but I completely failed. I didn't even get a grade. And that wasn't through lack of trying. I really, really did try. And the kind of ironic thing about this was that some of my English and media lessons actually clashed with my music lessons. So I used to skip English and media to go to music. And yet still I managed to get A's in English and media and managed to completely fail music. And again, for me, this was like one of those things in life where it feels like maybe you're off course on the trajectory that your life is supposed to take, and then life just finds a way to kind of put you back on course. Now, I'm not saying that I necessarily believe in a higher power or anything like that, but there are so many instances of this happening in life where you get just a little nudge that pushes you in the right direction that, I don't know, I kind of believe that there's something there, that kind of everything's supposed to happen for a reason. I was obviously devastated when I failed music, because I tried really, really hard at it, and it meant that I couldn't go to university to study it. But then that's when I saw a creative writing course, and I had always had this love of writing. It had stayed there with me even while I was pursuing music. It was still lying there underneath. And I don't know what it was, but something just said, do this. Like, this is right for you. This is perfect for you. You have the grades for it. It just seemed like the perfect fit. So I decided, after years of convincing myself that I was going to go to university to study music, I decided to instead go and study creative writing. So I went to university to study writing, and I fell back in love with the craft of it after neglecting this thing that I loved for years because I was so distracted by the idea of being a musician that I really managed to fall back in love with it. And I started writing for local magazines, and I became the editor of my student magazine, and I graduated with a first class honours, which I couldn't be happier with. I was so unbelievably thrilled, and I was almost grateful that I did fail music, and almost grateful that I ended up going to university to study what it was that I truly deeply underneath was in love with. And then that's where life kind of gets so complicated and tricky, because I kind of fell in and out of all these bizarre and weird jobs. I was a postman, I became an English teacher abroad, I ended up living in Thailand working with tigers, I had an office job in Spain, I worked all over the place doing all of these random bizarre jobs that I don't really ever remember trying to get. I don't really ever remember applying for any of these jobs. It's just life kind of happened, and life is the most unusual thing in that way sometimes. After kind of doing all of these weird and bizarre and wonderful jobs, I ended up moving to London. I fell in love with a boy here, and that's the reason that I moved here. And I think I've talked about this on my channel before. That did not work out. That went south very, very quickly, but it got me here to London. And being here in London is why I started both a career in social media, but it's also why I started my YouTube channel. And again, like all of these things, the reason I started a YouTube channel was so serendipitous. I had moved to London, I'd fallen in love with this boy, and I went to a YouTube convention to get all of his favourite YouTubers to sign a birthday card. I didn't actually have really an interest in YouTube. I didn't know who any of these YouTubers were. I just kind of went along for him and ended up falling in love with the community. That event, by the way, was Summer in the City, and I'll be attending my 6th one this year, which in itself is amazing that I started kind of, well, I wasn't even a fan, I was just kind of there in my first year, and then I went back a second year as a fan, and then I got invited as a creator, and now it's amazing that I get to go and be part of that community and to have kind of been on this journey. So shout out to the Summer in the City guys, they are amazing and they really support and drive this community. So yeah, Tom Burns and all the rest of them, you're absolute legends, and I would not be here without you. So I started my YouTube channel and it started taking off pretty quickly, and I actually made a video. I don't know if I've ever said this on my channel before. I made a video called How to Put on a Condom. This was years ago, years and years ago. And an amazing HIV charity actually reached out to me and said, we love this video, we would love to work with you. So again, this just happened one day. There was just an email in my inbox and I went along with it. So I went to meet this HIV charity and I started working with them, and they ended up offering me a job managing their social media campaigns, and I ended up staying in that job for 4 years. Just one little email that came off the back of me making a video about condoms, of all things, ended up with me working for this amazing charity for 4 years. And all of this has been amazing. Like, doing YouTube and everything else and having this social media presence has completely changed and shaped my life in ways that I could have never, ever imagined. And I'm so, so grateful for that. But on the flip side of that, it did kind of distract me again from my dreams and ambitions of being a writer. Before I started this YouTube channel, I used to write a blog, and I used to write on that blog a couple of times a week. I was also writing for magazines and constantly pitching to people and trying to become a writer. And this amazing world of YouTube, and it is amazing and I am grateful for it, it kind of took over, and it kind of again distracted me from this dream I'd had from being a little kid of being a writer. And then about 2 years ago, this amazing opportunity landed in my lap, and a publishing house, and I'm not going to name which one, reached out to me and said, hey, we love your YouTube channel, we love everything you're doing, would you be interested in publishing a book with us? And I was like, oh my god, like, I've always had this dream of being a writer, this is the perfect opportunity for me. So I went along and I met them, and we talked a lot about my writing and my YouTube channel, and they kind of tried to push, I don't want to say force, but they really tried to push this kind of YouTube book onto me, where they kind of wanted me to talk about my life and kind of talk about sex education, and that would have been amazing and that would have been really, really cool. But I said no. I said, there's something else I want to write. I've had this idea for a book for a while, and this is what I really, really want to publish. And they just weren't interested in my idea. They weren't interested in me as a writer. And I kind of felt like they just wanted me to publish a book so that they would have access to my audience and it would be an easy way to sell copies. And it was one of the most difficult decisions I've ever had to make, because your whole life wanting to publish a book, and then somebody hands it to you on a plate and says, hey, look, you can have a book. Do you want this book? But I did say no. And for months and months after saying no, I did wonder if that was the right decision. But it was. It absolutely was the right decision, and I'm going to get on to why. So, although I did turn down this book offer, it kind of reminded me that I love writing. And it kind of reminded me that although YouTube is great and this world is great and everything I'm doing here was brilliant and it was great for my career, that writing is the passion and writing is what I really needed to focus on. So I actually started looking into the literary world and looking at agents, and actually started writing this book because I'd been saying I wanted to write this book for so long, but I actually started putting pen to paper and actually started putting something together and sending it to agents. And then I did manage to secure an agent who actually loved the idea that I wanted to write and didn't want to. She's amazing, and she's never tried to push her ideas onto me. She's always been very respectful and encouraging of my ideas, and she was like, yeah, let's do this. Let's write this book and then let's try and sell it. While all of this was going on, I had a radio station reach out to me and say, hey, we love what you're doing on YouTube. Would you be interested in presenting a radio show? So with no radio experience or real presenting experience whatsoever, I mean, I did present a tiny little radio show when I was at university, but about 3 people listened, so I don't really know if I can count that. So without any experience in radio, without ever really having any desire to go into radio, I started presenting my own radio show, which I now do. It's every Wednesday evening, 6 to 8 p.m. There's a podcast of it as well. It's all about sex and sexuality, so it really fits with everything I'm doing here on YouTube and what I'm doing with my social media presence. So I'm really thrilled that I now have this radio show that I get to every single Wednesday. It's one of the highlights of my week, and I feel so grateful to have this kind of paying job that I would have never ever expected in a million years. And again, it's kind of this thing of, I feel like I'm almost falling through life. I feel like all of these amazing opportunities that come to me, I feel like I've never had to make any real decisions. Like, I never sat down and went, okay, I want to be an English teacher. How do I go about that? I just kind of looked at the opportunities that were thrown my way and did the best of what I had available. And now, I don't mean that I've never worked hard or anything like that. You know, I've probably applied for hundreds, if not thousands, of jobs in my life that I've not got. You know, I put myself out there, but I never really feel like I'm making decisions. I never really feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. And that is the point of this video. I feel like none of us know what we're doing. We're all just kind of doing our best and putting one foot in front of the other and just trying to make the most out of life and trying to kind of build ourselves a career and a life and everything else. And we're just figuring it out as we go. And that really is the point of why I wanted to make this really convoluted video, is to just really emphasize that point, because there are those times when I know that I felt really down, and I know that when I had depression, this was something that felt like an enormous burden and a weight on my shoulders, was just this, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I should have this thing, I should have this thing, I should have a plan, I should have all of these things in place. I'm a fuck up, I'm a failure. And it isn't like that at all, you know. We're just figuring it out as we go, and that's not a bad thing. That's actually a wonderful thing, and that's the amazing thing about life. And that kind of brings us up to present day. I'm sorry for literally giving you my life story. Nobody asked to hear that, but it kind of felt relevant to the point I'm trying to get across here. So a few weeks ago, I left my job, this job that I'd worked in for 4 years, and now for the first time in my life, I'm self-employed. I'm doing this, I'm doing YouTube, I have a radio show. I'm writing a book, which is literally sat in front of publishers right now who are deciding whether or not they want to buy this book, which is this kind of mind-blowing experience. And I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where my next paycheck is coming from. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how this is going to play out. Maybe anything could happen. I could be working in a noodle bar in China next week, or, life takes us on so many different journeys, and I've no idea what's going to happen, and that is terrifying. That is really terrifying, not knowing how I'm going to pay my rent, not knowing if people will be interested in my book, if they'll want to buy my book. I don't know any of these things, but I'm just figuring it out one step at a time. The only thing that gives me kind of reassurance is that life has always kind of found a way. Like, life has always given me opportunities and opened up a path for me. So where am I going to be in a year's time? I don't know. Maybe I'll have a book that I can show you. Maybe I have no idea. Maybe I'll be a writer, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll be doing something else. I say a year, I don't even know what I'm going to be doing in 6 months, 3 months. I couldn't even tell you what I'm going to be doing in 1 month's time. That's how kind of unstable life is. But I don't mean that as a deterrent. I mean that as a positive thing. So if you are kind of watching this video and you feel like stressed out and panicking about what you want to do with your life, whether you're 18 years old and leaving school and you've no idea what you want to do, or whether you're 28 like me and you're still trying to figure out your career, or whether you're 38 or 48 and you still kind of feel like you don't know what your purpose is yet, I feel like it's all coming, and everything does happen for a reason, and our lives are on a certain trajectory, and just kind of go with it. Obviously, like, throw yourself into everything, throw yourself at opportunities, jump on whatever comes your way, but don't stress and don't panic. Just do your best, and I feel like life finds a way. I know I've said that 5 million times in this video so far, but it really, really does. So yeah, I don't know what I'm doing with my life right now. I don't think I ever really have, but I'm excited for the future. I'm excited to be doing this for the first time, full time, being able to dedicate myself wholly to everything that I'm passionate about, and just thank you for your support. I know I don't upload very often, but thank you for watching and supporting me. And whatever happens next, I can't wait to take you along on the journey with me. So yeah, thank you for watching. Do follow me on my social media, because I know I don't upload here very often, but I'm posting every day on Twitter and Instagram talking about what's going on. So if you are interested, I love having you on this journey with me. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. See ya!